पाहि भयापहारिणि सदा स्मितवदने दयामयि शारदे दयादान गान ज्ञानरूपिणि सुयोगकारक मम पददायिनि सुयोगकारक मम पददायिनि दयामयि शारदे शृङ्गगिरिपीठ मूलकारिणि मङ्गलकरवर पुस्तकधारिणि शृङ्गगिरिपीठ मूलकारिणि मङ्गलकरवर पुस्तकधारिणि तुङ्गासङ्गा सह्याद्रि विहारिणि तुङ्गासङ्गा सह्याद्रि विहारिणि शङ्कर गुरुवर कुमार पोषिणि शङ्कर गुरुवर कुमार पोषिणि दयामयि शारदे मां पाहि भयापहारिणि सदा स्मितवदने दयामयि शारदे शारदे शारदे.
Thank you, Ms. Anusha. IQAC channelizes and systematizes the efforts and measures of an institution towards academic excellence. IQAC Coordinator, Professor Sharmishta Datta, I request you, Madam, to deliver welcome address.
Good morning. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to International Panel Discussion on the theme Challenging Gender Stereotypes, Global Perspectives, devoted to explore the current methods towards creating a gender-just society. Along this journey, we will learn from various panelists the importance of creating gender equal society from global perspectives and identify gender stereotypes and method of challenging them. It is a glorious moment to extend my warm welcome on behalf of Maharani Lakshmi Ammani College for Women to the panelists and guests. We have with us our managing trustee, Mr. K. Jairaj, who is the source of inspiration for all our activities. We welcome you, sir. I welcome Dr. Sashikala, Principal MLAC, for presiding over the function. On behalf of our institution, I welcome the chairperson of today's session, Professor R. Indira, visiting professor for B.R. Ambedkar Chair, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar Research and Extension Center. I welcome today's panelists, Professor Vibhuti Patel, former Chair, Advanced Center Women's Studies, Social of the School of Development Studies, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. Mr. Rajesh Krishnamachari, Director of Quality, Manscaped, California, USA. Ms. Mabeline, a Technical Trainer, Zoom, Florida, USA. Professor N. Manimekalai, Director and Head, Department of Women's Studies, Bharatiya Dasan University, Tamil Nadu. Professor Srimati, Adjunct Professor in the Department of Women's Studies at IIPR, Bangalore. We are delighted to have you all as panelists for international panel discussion. I once again welcome you all. This event is powered by Quantmasters and Astitva Foundation. I welcome Mr. Himanshu Sharma and Mrs. Pragati for today's panel discussion. I extend my warm welcome to Dr. Annadanesh, our Administrative Officer, Professor Sarita, PU Principal, Maharani Lakshmi Ammani College, and MLAC staff, students, guests, and technical team who are present here. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. A great principal builds character, inspires dream, instills a love of learning. A honorable principal, Dr. Shashikala A. Madam, I request you to deliver an overview of MLAC.
A very good morning to one and all present here. You can teach a student a lesson for a day, but if you can teach him to learn by creating curiosity, he will continue the learning process as long as he lives. Our commitment is to a student-centered environment, and the college is dedicated to education with values and skills. Maharani Lakshmi Ammani College for Women is a premier institution, especially for women. The holistic aim of the institution is to impart education with a vision to empower women through education, has been strengthened by the tremendous positive change in the institution in the past decades. College took path-breaking initiatives in higher education with the introduction of innovative and modern curricula, and MLAC has achieved many milestones. NAC A grade, college with potential for excellence, DBT, DST recognition and funding, research centers, star college status, including autonomous status. We are also ranked among the top colleges in India, Karnataka, and Bangalore by India Today. Today, Maharani Lakshmi Ammani College for Women is one of the best colleges imparting value-based education. It commands a strength of 3,000 plus students in multiple branches. College offers several courses in PUC, undergraduate, postgraduate, PG diploma, and BWalk programs. State-of-the-art laboratories, which are well equipped, provides a conducive atmosphere for students to acquire practical skills in the concerned areas. Sheelam Parama Bhushanam is the motto of the institution, striving to mold the future of the student with a mission focusing on providing education based on values, ethics, and skills. Also fostering research culture to serve the needs of the society by providing opportunities for selfless service to the nation, ultimately preparing a strong foundation for lifelong learning. It is a moment of joy as well as pride for us to step into the Golden Jubilee year 2022. In these 50 years, we have ensured that growth is not only in volume, but also by adding more substance. We cater to the need of socially and economically less privileged. We strive to empower women in the true sense by encouraging personal expression and engagement in social and community services. At MLAC, we provide an all-round education to impart academic excellence and ensure that our students are equipped with the tools to make an impact in the world. I congratulate the placement cell for organizing the international panel discussion with the objective of creating gender equal society. I wish all the best and success for the event. Thank you.
Placements play a vital role in building the career of the students. That is, our Honorable Head, Placements and Training, Dr. Hemamani MJ Madam. I request you to introduce the session chair, Professor K. Indira.
A warm welcome to everyone. Good morning. It's my privilege to introduce Indira on. Professor Indira, she's currently a visiting professor in Dr. B.R. Ambedkar University of Mysore. And she's also formerly, she was a professor and chairperson of Department of Sociology, honorary director of the Center of Women's Studies and director of the international programs at the University of Mysore. Ma'am is the past president of Indian Sociological Society. She's an invited faculty in the School of Social Science, Ramaya University of Applied Sciences, Bangalore, and SDM Institute of Management Sciences, Mysore. She's also a member of Board of Governors of the Institute of Social and Economic Change, Bangalore, Research Advisory Council of Stella Maris College, and many other research organizations, besides having been the advisory boards of special assistant programs of JNU, Shivaji University, Osmania, Annamalai Universities. She has been visiting fellow at the Delhi University and scholar in residence at Bangalore and Coimbatore University. 27 students have been awarded PhD under her guidance. Professor R. Indira is a two-time Fulbright scholar, four-time Shastri Fellow, and a senior fellow of ICSSR. She's been a visiting faculty at the Study India programs of universities of Puget Sound, Cornell, Delaware, Princeton, Michigan, and Florida International Universities in the US and Mount Allison, Concordia, and Gulf universities in Canada. Her research work with forest-dependent communities in the Joyda region of Uttar Karnataka, district of Karnataka state, with special focus on women empowerment, initiated many reforms in a region that she had been sidelined by developmental projects of several decades. Dr. Indira has authored several books and articles in journals, edited volumes, newspapers, both in English and Kannada, and has been a contributor and editor to subject encyclopedias, dictionaries, journals, theme-based books, and translation projects that has been conferred literary awards and recognitions for her works and social issues. She's a well-known columnist whose fortnightly column Hosadari, published in leading Kannada daily Prajavani, brought to the public domain many issues of social significance and continues to be cited in many works and related themes. Dr. Indira's column Manushi, published in Prajanuri daily from Mysore, and Samajamukhi, currently being published in Mysore Mitra, have also drawn attention to issues of contemporary relevance. Among her recent works are the English Kannada Glossary in Sociology, published by the National Translation Mission as consultant editor, and English Kannada Glossary in Gender Studies as chief editor, currently in the publication process. Dr. Indira has lectured extensively in universities, colleges, and civil society platforms across the city. This was a gist I gave about ma'am. We welcome you, ma'am. Over to you, Indira, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning to everybody, my friends, colleagues, and students and participants who have joined this webinar in large numbers. Thank you, Dr. Hemamalini, for that nice introduction that you gave. And hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I go ahead?
We can hear you, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't think I'll take a lot of time because there are all my colleagues and friends who would be speaking. So all I would say is I first of all congratulate the college for organizing an event of such importance, because much as we may want to argue that gender stereotypes or gender inequality does not exist today, it is very much there. This morning's paper here in Mysore, when I opened it, I got to see a very ghastly news that a father had killed his daughter simply because she chose to, chose a person as her future marital partner who did not belong to her caste. So you see, women and girl children, it's on the one hand, we are very happy that more young girls and women are being educated today than ever before. We are also very happy that employment opportunities have opened. And of course, the COVID pandemic, hit women workers very badly, and a large number of them lost their jobs. However, it's true that now the job market, which has become so diverse in India, has opened up opportunities for women. And a large number of families in this country are being run exclusively on women's earnings. But with all this, gender stereotypes still persist. Now, what are these stereotypes? I won't go into too many details because Vibhuti will be speaking about it. All I want to say is, you see, these gender stereotypes are imposed on all genders, not necessarily women only. This is something which we all have to bear in mind. Male, female, and the LGBTQ plus community, they are all, you see, being pressurized under this syndrome called the gender stereotype, because gender stereotypes are only cultural symbols, in my view, attached to different genders, setting behavior norms and deciding what they should do or they should not do. So stereotype is ingrained in the minds of all people, including those who fall a prey to the negative impact of gender stereotypes. So it's there is no point, I would say, sorry, in arguing that gender stereotypes have disappeared. They have not. They are very much there. And I'm very happy that today we are talking about challenging these stereotypes, because it's time to question. And why it is necessary to question gender stereotypes is often, they block development. They block the way we think. They block the way we behave naturally. And more than anything else, I would say that gender stereotypes, only block our choices. Because we first have to think of ourselves as human beings. If it is my choice not to do something, not to be something, not to study something, not to go out and do a particular type of work or do a particular type of work, I must have the freedom to do so. So challenging gender stereotypes will happen only when we have the freedom to exercise our choices over our body, our mind, our life, and our decisions. So in the next hour plus, we will all be listening to all our friends here who will be talking about what these gender stereotypes are, how they come into existence, and how they operate in this society, and what it is a challenge, I would say, to create a gender equal world. Already references have been made that one of the objectives of this college, which I have been seeing even as a young person visiting Bangalore many times, creating a gender equal society is our goal. But that can happen only when some deep-rooted biases in our system are challenged. First, they are realized and then questioned and then challenged. It's only then we can create a new social order. I thank you for this opportunity, and now I would, hand it over to the host of the show, and then I'm looking forward to listening to all of you. Thank you. Namaste.
to 2012. She did a doctorate in economics from University of Mumbai, and she's also awarded a postdoctoral fellowship from Association of Commonwealth Universities in 1992 to conduct research at the London School of Economics and Political Science, UK. Her areas of specialization have been gender economics, women's studies, human rights, social movements, and gender budgeting. She has authored many books like Women's Challenges of the New Millennium, and she has also co-authored Reaching for Half the Sky and many other books. Professor Vibhuti Patil have been a member of various expert committees as well. So she has been member of various expert committees for IGNOU, Ministry of Science and Technology, and NCRT during 2005 to 2014. She prepared a base paper on Gender for Mumbai Human Development Report 2009. As a member of expert committee of the working group on discrimination against women and girls of United Nations Human Rights Council, she contributed to prepare a report on women's human rights in the changing world of women 2020. During last 3.5 decades, Professor Vibhuti Patil has presented papers and have been a resource person in several national and international seminars, workshops, collaborative research projects, training programs, and conferences on economics and development studies with gender perspective in various parts of India as well as in abroad, including Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, Australia, Thailand, Malaysia, and many more. So over last 4 decades, Professor Vibhuti Patil's work have focused on issues on intersectionally where gender development and social justice meet. As I told, we are really privileged to have Professor Vibhuti Patil in our panel discussion as a panelist. I request you to take over, ma'am.
Very good morning to one and all. First of all, I would like to greet Professor Indira Ramarao, Chairperson of this panel discussion, organizer of this important event, Dr. Hema Malini, Chief Patron, Shri K. Raj, Convener, Dr. Shashikala, Professor Dr. Rajesh Krishnamachari, Ms. Mablin, and Professor Mani Meklai, Professor Shrimati, and Professor Shamina, and esteemed participants. My presentation today, as Dr. Indira announced, it is on gender stereotypes, and I would like to share my PPT because in 15 minutes we have to cover the subject. It's a very exhaustive subject. So identifying gender stereotypes and concepts and manifestations. First of all, we all know at a common sense level that what kind of traditional gender stereotypes are existing, where the feminine traits are considered to be very like being non-aggressive, dependent, easily influenced, submissive, passive, home-oriented, easily hurt emotionally. Women start crying. That's the stereotype. In being indecisive, talkative, gentle, sensitive to others' feelings, desirous of security, and
bag ಕೊಡ್ತೀನಿ ಶ್ರೀನಿವಾಸ್ ಸಾಮಾನ್ ತೆಗಿ ಕಾರಿಂದ
what is your name? You just tell to unmute them or mute ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ರು.
I have been muted and I can't share screen. Please allow me to share the screen. Yeah, now it's fine. Can you see my slides?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am. You can continue.
So So we all know that gender stereotypes, I was talking about the traditional gender stereotypes about masculine and feminine traits where men are expected to be aggressive, independent, not easily influenced, dominant, active, worldly, and also very, very tough, cruel, blunt, while women have exactly opposite. The dress code, currently major debate is going on in our country about the dress code. Globally also, we have seen that certain types of dress code are not acceptable. There are certain stereotypes we have even about the dress code for different genders. Gender stereotypes are practice of ascribing to individual women, man, and transgender specific attributes, characteristics, and role by reason only their membership in the social group of women or men or transgender. So these are the stereotypes, like girls should play with dolls, boy have to play with cars, boys should be directed to like blue and green, while women should like red and pink. Boys should not wear dresses or other clothes typically associated with girls. So this we know at a common sense level. Girls have to be, the body shaming that happens, girls have to be thin and graceful, while the boys have to be tall and muscular. And the stereotypes about gender, race, sexual orientation, social class, ability, and the concept of disability, age, nationality, political stereotypes, religious stereotypes, all of them also enhance, like they create intersectional vulnerabilities and prejudices that can get in way of people while getting jobs, or lead to the social exclusion, or create arbitrary in-groups and out-groups. Who is allowed inside, like caste system creates this kind of code of conduct that you can't. When I was studying in a school, first thing they ask, which caste you belong to and what is your papa's job. No, so that would decide whether that person would become your friend or not. After that, with the consumerist society, it all changed. That whether you have a car, or do you live in a bungalow or a chawl, or you which suburb in Bombay, which suburb you live. So there is a cultural apartheid in Mumbai city. If you are in a North Bombay, you are a commoner. If you are in South Bombay, you are elite. No. So these are the kind of stereotypes we always have, which also create principles of exclusion and inclusion. They are also closely associated with gender identity. What is the personal conception of oneself as man or a woman, male, female, or either both, like there are intersex or transgender people. So they are very much related to the kind of roles that are assigned to you. Gender roles, they are outward expression of gender identity, and gender roles in society means how we are expected to act, speak, dress, groom, and conduct ourselves based upon the assigned sex. For example, girls and women are generally expected to dress in a typical feminine way and be polite, accommodating, and nurturing. Men are generally expected to be strong, aggressive, and bold. So every society, every ethnic group, every cultural group has gender role expectations, and they vary according to geography, according to the historical stage of the civilization, and also according to the various cultural norms that they have. So what we see that how are gender stereotypes affecting peoples? They affect personality trait, they affect domestic behavior, what kind of food boy and girl would get, who would eat last list and leftover, who would be first served all the economic resources of the family. Professor Raman Kumar has said that on an average, Indian girl and women face 7 types of inequalities. So girls not being allowed to be born, because now even educated families, they resort to sex selective abortion. We had a long campaign of 35 years to fight against sex selective abortions, leading to currently there is a child sex ratio is extremely adverse, mainly because of the gender stereotypes of son preference and aversion to daughter. It affects the occupation. Why women are mainly found as teachers or secretaries or nurses, and now it becomes very difficult for a woman to negotiate employment as pilot or doctor or engineer in so many families. Though if you see those occupational structure, you hardly have 7 to 10% women in so-called masculine, the male-dominated professions. Physical appearance, that is very important bearing it has of gender stereotype. Hyperfemininity, that means you have to be passive, naive, sexually inexperienced, soft, flirtatious, graceful, nurturing, and accepting. That is a hyperfemininity. Hypermasculinity, is linked with the aggressive behavior, being sexually experienced, insensitive, physically imposing, ambitious, and demanding. Now, these exaggerated gender stereotypes can make relationships between people very difficult. Hyperfeminine folks are more likely to endure physical and emotional abuse from their partners, which is most of the studies on domestic violence have shown. And hypermasculine folks are more likely to be physically and emotionally abusive to their partners. So extreme gender stereotypes can be harmful because they don't allow people to self-actualize, to fully express themselves and their emotions. If a man cries, then they would call him sissy. Okay, so that is that the mard ko dard nahi hota, men don't feel physical pain, that kind of a stereotype which is created, which is overbearing for men also. So now this kind of gender stereotypes, they create gender inequality. What is your social status? How are you rated? Because all relations in the existing society are power relations. So girls, women and girls are particularly discriminated against in economic and political arena. They are marginalized, like the girls from marginalized families, they are left out of education, health and development. Progress on structural determinants is nuanced, not necessarily linear. Given the unintended consequences and conservative gender backlash, we have seen that the kind of gains we had in the 80s, some of them are getting wiped out. We saw even in the 2 years of pandemic, 1 crore girls are forced out of school because they could not have digital connectivity. If there was one smartphone, it was used for boys' education. So policy change to address gender power relations in one area can be sidelined by lack of reforms in the other area. You may have a very, very progressive legislation as a result of pressure from the women's movement or feminist movement, but the societal norms, they come in a way. So you may ensure, Supreme Court of India may ensure property right to the daughters, but that itself would result in a sex selective abortions. Or at the time of Raksha Bandhan, there are even government officials in Rajasthan who sent circular that if your sister doesn't will away her property to brother, then don't allow her to tie Rakhi. No, so this kind of emotional blackmail also takes place. So reaching those most left behind by policy, legislation, social interventions require structural policy initiative across multiple forms of marginalization, and that is the kind of work Professor Indira, myself, all of us have been doing. So we are not only teaching, but we are also training, we are documenting, we are doing research, we are intervening in policy making bodies, we bring out gender dimension. Another very important issue is that of this year in the month of March, Feminist India initiative, they started every year, they give certain months for one particular theme. So this time's theme was a gender at workplace. And we have seen that India has one of the lowest work participation rate in the world. Currently, out of every 5 women, only 1 woman has a job in Indian economy. So what are the reasons where women are not getting level playing field in the world of work? Sexual harassment work is rampant. Me Too movement, you can see the testimony. Even the Women Development Cell and Internal Complaints Committee are not able to give justice. They work under tremendous pressure from above. Power, gender, caste plays a very important role in what kind of job you will get in Indian context. Race and ethnicity play a very important role in the world market. Gender, 92% of women are ghettoized in an unorganized sector where there is a law of jungle. There is a tremendous masculinity and very militant patriarchy at the workplace. So many women, girls have recently, even in the midst of lockdown, they went on a strike, they told all their horror stories, how they are forced to use emergency contraceptive to postpone their menstruation. So many women in the agriculture sector would not get job unless they get hysterectomized. So you have a cases where 18-year-old, 21-year-old, 22-year-old women in the agriculture field, they are hysterectomized and they are facing the after effect of it. So this is the level of control of sexuality, fertility, and labor that takes place. The myths about menstruation, the taboos regarding menstruation. So many tribal communities, they isolate girl in at the outskirts of the village, which creates tremendous insecurity and hazard for them. mental health at workplace is very because that the aggression, microaggression that women face continuously because of the gaslighting, constantly killing their self-esteem, constantly telling them that you are good for nothing. That kind of atmosphere, which is very toxic at the workplace, doesn't allow it. It forces women to remain and stagnate at the bottom of the hierarchy. History of feminist trade unionism has also shown that we can challenge these gender stereotypes. So, and also in the popular culture, also by creating an alternate media, we have we can change the stereotypes. But at the same time, it happens that whenever the disaster or emergency takes place, we have heard whether it was a tsunami or pandemic, we have seen so many evil aspects of gender stereotypes. They come out, which result in girls being forced out of school, child marriages becoming rampant, child labor, forced child labor. These are the pictures of last 2 years. These are not the old pictures, okay? All of them are there. Trafficking of women, parents selling of their children out because of poverty and hunger. So we have, these gender stereotypes have strengthened exponentially during this pandemic, not only in India, but all 204 countries which were affected by pandemic. The manifestations may be different in different countries. So how can we challenge this kind of gender stereotypes? As Professor Indira Ramarao said, the first and most important thing is to realize that there are gender stereotypes. You can't be in a denial mode. We can't be the ostrich who say that we have, because Constitution of India has given Article 14, 15, 16, we have all the problems solved. No. First of all, you have to, level one is to realize that there is gender inequality. You have to challenge the gender blindness. You can't treat different people differently. If there is inequality, different people need to have a different kind of social support, affirmative action. Level 3 is being gender sensitive and creating structures and systems which are very encouraging and enabling for those who are the weak or those who are at the receiving end of the system. Level 4 is to come up with a gender specific interventions in the 5 vital areas of human governance, that is education, health, employment, decision making in family, community, politics, and society. And also 5th one, combating gender-based violence. The moment you try to change the status quo, you face violence. As Dr. Indira gave an example of a girl choosing her life partner facing violence. Level 5 is a gender transformative. What kind of measures we can take as educationists, as conscious citizen, as by using the budget, transformative financing, gender responsive budgeting. Karnataka has been one of the leading states for gender transformative financing during the 80s and 90s. So we can address these issues. It is very important because unequal gender relations and gender stereotypes are not created by Mother Nature. They are not created by God. We human beings have created them, and we can change these power relations by, and gender power relations affect all, but the structural forms of gender inequality starkly concentrate disadvantage against girls, women, transgender persons, and persons with disability. So these 7 approaches are extremely important. First of all, to transform the gender inequality by affirmative action. Number 2, create, implement, and enforce formal international and regional agreements. I congratulate the college for organizing this international event, because we need to exchange the best practices. We need to empower each other, and transnational feminist solidarity is very important. Third one is the identifying the various types of vulnerabilities and addressing them. And the fourth one is to create the system, develop skills, capacities, and capabilities at all levels of socio-political structure, right from Panchayati Raj Institute, local self-government bodies, subnational level to national and international level. Reaching out to the international policy-making bodies also is extremely important, because world is connected. Visibility of gender in statistics and indicators is extremely important for targeted intervention. So what we need is a gender disaggregated data of socioeconomic status, and we also need the accountability mechanism. Whatever gender promises we are making, they have to be translated actually into the transformative agenda and creating a more level playing field. The way we fought against sex-selective abortions, we managed to get the PCP-NDT Act. After 40 years of consistent fight against organization, which Dr. Dr. Indira also founded Samata, or our organization Forum Against Oppression of Women, and all the collectively the nationwide women's movement, they managed to get series of legal reforms. I would like to end my presentation with some of the verses of Maya Angelou. I think they are extremely important, that how after 500 years of slavery, women, Black women, women, Afro-American women, their resilience, their courage in the midst of all the onslaught of patriarchy. And this is the poem of Maya Angelou, I Will Rise. So does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I have got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history of shame and rise, up from the past that's rooted in pain and I rise. I am a black ocean, leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in my tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that is wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise. I think this is the most inspirational poem I have found so far as the women's concern, and challenging the gender stereotypes, which intersectionally constructed gender stereotypes about the Black women that she's challenging. These are some of the references which I have used, and I think I recommend this to students also. Judith Butler's famous book on gender identities, then the gender as a social determinant of health. Leela Dubey's work we have translated in several Indian languages. I remember translating it into Gujarati, on the construction of gender, Hindu girls in patrilineal family. Our battle, her case study of fight against sex-selective abortions in our country, and Meenakshi Thapar's collected work published by Nehru Memorial, where several feminists have contributed various articles dealing with the day-to-day struggles of women in various fields of life. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to present my views.
Thank you, madam, for giving a detailed note on how to identify gender stereotypes at home, place of work, college, and society. Also for advocating the importance of retaining the choice and freedom to do what you want. The poem by Maya Angelou was truly awe-inspiring, ma'am. Thank you so much. I now request Ms. Jayashree, Assistant Professor, Department of Biochemistry, to introduce the Session 2 speaker, Mr. Rajesh Krishnamachari.
I deem it as my privilege to introduce such a distinguished personality, Mr. Rajesh Krishnamachari. Raj Krishnamachari is a seasoned executive and leader with over 30 years of experience in manufacturing at several multinational and regional companies across multiple geographic locations. His experiences are primarily focused in the areas of quality and compliance in medical devices, food and dietary supplements, cosmetics, and specialty chemicals. His notable experiences are derived from the building and leading high-performance team in organizations like PepsiCo, International Flavors and Fragrances, Hartmann USA, Nelson Nutraceuticals, and Manscaped. His career span is equally split between corporate roles and manufacturing roles, giving a unique ability to appreciate and promote interests of both sides. He has built and developed the teams in large manufacturing operations. He has trained and transformed several managers and directors to become leaders with a focus on core values of inclusivity, transparency, work-life balance, self-development, and commitment. He is a part of the management policy-making leaders that develop and promotes talents, sets objectives, selects training curricula, and handles benchmarking. He was born in Pudukkottai, Tamil Nadu. After earning his bachelor's degree in chemistry from Chennai, he worked for several leading organizations in India before relocating to United States in 2005. He is currently settled in Los Angeles, California. It's an honor to have you in our panel, sir. Over to you.
I request Mr. Krishna Ramachari to take over the session.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. Good morning, respected Professor Indra, Professor Vibhuti Patel, Maybelline, and Professor Manimekalai, and Professor Srimati. It's a great honor to be in front of you and great leaders from your universities. And of course, I am Raj. I'm from California, and my topic today is promoting the gender balance. And it's my honor to be with you. And I truly enjoyed Professor Indra and Professor Vibhuti Patel's initial topics on this. So I'm planning to share my experiences and thoughts on this very important topic, and this topic that I love and really committed to. So first, before starting it, what is the gender balance at the workplace? And many of you know, workplace is a space where individuals of different gender work together, and every workplace has limited resources and opportunities. And distributing these equitably to everyone is key success to the organization. A failure to do can harm the individuals, their careers, and sometimes their mental health and well-being too. So it's a very important topic for us to ensure that we have a gender balance at the work. Before we start anything, like Professor Indra was pointing out, the first step to address and resolve a challenge is to accept that the challenge exists. And there is a gender imbalance in the workplace. Men take the lion's share of resources and opportunities in most organizations, depriving the other genders of the same. In fact, there was a poll in 2019 where 2 out of 3 women expressed facing discriminations or harassments at the workplace. And this is 2 out of 3 is a real big number. And there are certain jobs, as you know very well, where the women are predominant, and similarly, there are certain jobs where men are predominant. For example, registered nurse, 90% of the registered nurse, or 90% of the school teachers in kindergartens and elementary schools are predominantly women. 60% of the workforce in hospitality is women. So if you look at security or vehicle technicians, they are all over 90% dominated by men. So there is definitely a gender imbalance that exists. At the same time, within the same role, the pay gap is significant between a male and a female counterparts. For example, it's all well known, published, the legal professionals and the entertainment artists have the highest discrimination when it comes to the pay. And most importantly, the women undergo disproportionate levels of discriminations and harassment at workplace. I don't know, but today's inequalities persist despite the fact that women are continuing to shape the world through their leadership, and we are celebrating women's leadership. And the running the world's most important organizations, or leading the nations to better outcomes, or standing up for human rights, or pioneering groundbreaking innovations. All these areas, I think women are excelling very well. So can you imagine that how beautiful the world would be if we provide equitable resources and opportunities to all genders? And I think that's the point that we are trying to discuss today. So let's look at some of the challenges women face in the workplace. And most of my experiences and the talking points that I'm doing it here is predominantly based in my experience, in my career in the United States. And I do understand, having worked in India, the challenges are a little bit more severe, but the way we resolve that and the way how we deal with it remains, in my opinion, more or less the same. The very first thing in the challenges in the workplace is the entry. Many institutions don't give an equal opportunity for the interview at the first place because there is a bias at the resume selection and interviews. In fact, one of my previous company, the manager says this. Well, I asked, this lady is a middle-aged woman, and I asked her what band does she like? because I was trying to understand, what type of personality she is. I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, why do you want to know that? Because the point is that there is a bias already exists in terms of, how to judge people. We are not judging for what we want, but we are judging for what we don't want many times. So I have seen a job description that starts with the he. And I asked, why do you start with he? This is the bias that we have for a given job. Okay, well, this is only a man can do. And these are the things. And then another employee was, interviewing the hiring manager, and he wanted to do it a Zoom interview. And then his point was, well, when I do the Zoom, I can understand a little bit more about his culture, how his home looks like and all. Why? That does not have, we don't need to have a bias, or we don't need to judge the people for what they do or what their background is. We must be able to give them an opportunity for what the job requires. Oh, I dropped dropped her at the car. I just wanted to find out what type of car she drives, and then and if the car has the child seat. Why? These are all the types of behaviors or thinkings that are challenging women to entry or any specific gender to get into this place. And these are the things that we needed to address it. And I will cover some of the opportunities in the coming slides. And then the next one is the access, once they enter, staying and growing. That's the next challenge that especially a gender like woman gender or the LGBTQI genders, the biggest challenge they have is staying and growing. Because onboarding challenges, if there is a person is a different gender, onboarding is greatly challenged. That's because of the belief systems or the stereotypes that the people believe in it. And then the next one is viewing women's personal or family needs as a loss or shame. This is one of the biggest challenges that the workplace has. When a woman asks for some, to attend to a family need or to her personal needs, people look at it as if they are making a favor to her. That's wrong. In fact, I had a great incident in my current company itself when one of the employees was given a promotion because she deserved the promotion, she got it. And she's actually leaving for maternity within a week's time. And here is the comment that she made. Oh, I'm glad that you guys promoted me, knowing the fact that I'm going to go in maternity leave within a week's time. None of us ever thought that. I mean, we all thought that she deserves, she has contributed, and when the applicant or when the candidate appreciates that, we have to give it. But the fact that she feels that way, we all realize that, okay, fine, maybe we need to do something more to change this perception. And that's not the acceptable, culture to set it in here. And then also the job descriptions. Many times when the job descriptions are written, they stipulate or they skew to a specific candidate or to specific person favoring them. And that's how they write it. There's a lot of companies that have changed, especially in states like California and all. It'll be hard to do, but still there is a practice that still exists. That impedes the staying and growing of the people, especially of the other gender. And look at this graph. This is harassment challenges in workplace harassment. The women get harassed significantly more than men. And look at the media industries that they are in. They are in media, technology and telecommunication, consulting and management. These are the areas. These are the industries or areas that have a profound impact on the society. And this is where the places where we need an equitable opportunity for women so that we can set the future in the right path. And this is the area where we are seeing so much harassment. This needs to change, and how are we going to do that? So how do we deal with it, some of the thought process and some of the challenges? There are 4 critical areas that needs to be fixed or that needs to be addressed. The first is the leadership and the organizational culture. and then individual ownership and training, equal pay, and legislative framework. We'll go through some of them, the ideas that we practice, and some of the things that people are trying to achieve, and see the outcomes too. So, leadership. 80% of the problem in gender imbalance is caused by poor leadership. Today, our leaders don't take responsibility. They are driven by the monetary incentives to an outcome rather than the process that they take to reach the desired outcome. Short-term goals supersedes the long-term stability. So the leadership is the most important thing that we need to address in order to make a meaningful change in the gender bias. And what's, after all, an organization's culture or style? It's nothing but the belief systems and the practices of the top leader. Whatever that he does, that's what everybody follows. So these type of gender imbalances starts from the leadership. That's the first area that we need to focus. That's where the most training needs to happen. That's where more realization needs to happen in order to go in the right direction. Individual ownership and training. This is something that I always take a very good examples on individual accountability. This good example. Let's say you are driving a car in a neighborhood and children are playing. Now, who is responsible for the safety of the children from not hitting your car in your vehicle? The answer is 100% it's the driver, it's you. It doesn't matter if there is a fence, if there is a caregiver, there is a guards, there is a signs, nothing matters. The responsibility to ensure that the children don't get hurt in your vehicle fully 100% rests on you. That's the accountability that we exercise when we do that. And that's true for this important topic too, which is maintaining a gender balance within the workplace. Every individual that works in the workplace needs to have that as their performance indicator. The leaders or the hiring managers, they need to have that. And that's when we can achieve the gender equality. So some of the small activities, but it makes a lot of difference in the outcomes. So especially in the bias reductions in the resume presentations. And then using a panel instead of an individual. And then preliminary screening by HR professionals who have a much better view of the organization's well-being, so that the hiring manager's decisions are channeled in a right way. So because these are small things that can help make a right decisions. And most importantly, of course, I always keep telling my managers and directors, keeping empathy as a leading value in interactions. Anytime we speak with a different gender, we need to understand that the empathy is a very important factor before we make any judgments or any decisions. If we don't have those, we are most likely going to fail in our team building exercise. Next one is my very favorite topic too. It's equal pay. So we all use what is your previous salary history. What is the compensation before you joined here, and that is being used as a compensation, setting the compensation in the new role. The single factor, this factor alone perpetuates and compounds the effects of prior discrimination. If we want to get out of the discrimination, we need to make some decisions and actions that don't perpetuate this type of behaviors. So what is the position and what is the position pays? And that's what we need to provide. The market, the job description, and the role-based compensation could be a great resource. And this is something that we have implemented. I mean, in many of the roles where I have worked, we have followed this. Of course, there are some professions like nursing and teaching where 90% of the workforce is women. And these are all undervalued. So therefore, what happens now is when the compensations or any pay changes that happens to these industry because we are so much stuck on market rules and then market level playing. So it sometimes neglects or sometimes doesn't give the economic representations that is required for a very important professions like this. So in society-based economic indicators needs to be taken when we try to do manage the equal pay challenges. Legislative framework. I am not a very big fan of legislative support to these initiatives. However, I do support now because we are still at a very, very infancy stage where when it comes to gender equity. I mean, irrespective of the country where we are, I think the gender equity is still, there's a long way to go. So providing some incentives and disincentivizing certain behavior definitely provides opportunity for more labor participations and women taking up roles. Preference to women business and contracts. Many states in the United States have these programs wherein they give the preferences to that. Tax incentives for working women and childcare. Childcare is a very big, expense item, especially in the United States, especially when a woman is working. And affordable childcare is preventing many women to join the workforce. And then if they want to be an entrepreneurial, which is very, very important, the access to the capital is again a challenge. Of course, from the workplace discriminations, violence against women, sexual harassments, I think these are really picking up a lot. But the fact is, most of these harassments doesn't get reported. Rather, they choose to leave. And that's the very sad part of the entire frameworks and doing all these things is many times women don't stand up for what their rights are. And then mandatory training on gender inclusivity. The training has helped many managers and leaders to understand the right perspective and why they need to change. And women needs leaderships and board opportunities. And then gender-driven pay graph, of course, we talked about that before. So having said all of that, so that the success in gender diversity initiative lies in the leaders' ability to create a culture where people bring out their best by themselves. They don't need to follow somebody else or emulate some other gender for which they don't associate themselves with. And that's where I think we can make a big change. The students here in this college, of course, you are all valuable assets. You're future leaders and you are going to join the workforce. Be yourself, be confident, be empathetic. Most importantly, at every point in your life, you deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. That's a very important trait that you need to remember. Thank you. I greatly appreciate the opportunity provided Dr. Hema and her team and for all of you who have been listening to this one. I truly appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sensitizing us about the kinds of bias that is faced by people at workplace and providing various solutions to solve the issues and also to promote gender balance at workplace. We really thank you so much. Now we'll move on to the session 3, and the speaker for the session 3 is Maybelline Madam. I would like to introduce Maybelline Madam to the audience. So Maybelline is a creative, empathetic, and inspirational leader who believes collaboration is vital in becoming great stewards through innovative solutions that improve people's daily life. She is a distinguished engineer and professional services manager. She has been having experience in system integration and transformation for about 21 years and 21 years of experience in innovation and engineering and 30 years in leadership and team building. She is distinguished engineer and professional services manager with 30 years of creative, empathetic, inspirational leader, and customer experience through innovative technologies. With a high achieving professional using knowledge of specification review and model creation, strategic leader, and effective problems solver with a firm grasp of collaboration solution needs and exceptional ability to optimize procedures, improve policies, and maximize productivity. She's also co-founder of the Lean Into campaign, which promotes diversity for all. She's a spokesperson for the Lean In community that supports over 40,000 diverse members across around the world. Collaboration with more than 10 Lean In networks and circles ranging from 50 to 2,000 members seeking support for women, LGBTQ, neurodiversity, people of color, disabled, unemployed, students, and entrepreneurs. So we welcome you to the session, ma'am, and I request you to take over.
All right. Well, thank you so much for the beautiful introduction. Thank you so much for all the professors, Dr. Hema, for the coordination of all the events. Definitely Vibhuti, Mr. Rajesh, Professor Manimakalai, and Professor Simathi. There's a lot of important topics. I especially value awareness. That's the most important piece, right? Recognizing that gender stereotype exists. This is the job that we're trying to fulfill, and hopefully we can make more improvements in the future to make sure that we are all part of that solution. It's a global solution. So I am part of Vita May as a founder. I'm also part of Zoom, and everybody knows the mission of Zoom is to make it a fair equity for all to access communication around the world. So I'm very thankful that I'm part of a caring company. That's another reason why I'm very fortunate that I'm representing Zoom as well as a social justice person. So thank you for having me. And let's just go right into the topic. Why am I sharing my story, right? To make sure that it's important that you see what's meaningful for us, right? So I want to make sure that you see that visually. Why does it matter? You should see that my family is important. That's what I value the most. This is what I live for. And hopefully you see that as part of my story. I can't do a lot of the things that I do today without putting the effort to be an example to my children. I have 4 boys, ages 20, 19, and 2 twin boys. One's autistic. So I'm very familiar with neurodiversity as a...
The Lakshmi or Mr.
Can you still hear me? Is it transitioning? Hopefully. Okay. All right, I see it moving. So it's important for me to resonate and connect with you in a deeper level. We have the education background and technical background for all levels. Those are important, but it only makes sense when you follow your destiny, you follow what you love doing and what you're passionate about and take actions to that and set goals for that. So I want to make sure that you're reminded of that. So let me make sure that you see this. Let's see. All right, so you probably see a video or at least animation of the river. So I think breaking the stereotype is just like a river. We have different variables, we have different barriers that we're going to, and the salmon symbolizes, at least the fish itself symbolizes us breaking through the barriers. It's resilient, it has a destination, they want to make it to their goals, they want to be able to reach equity as a whole. Rivers symbolize the path that we go through. There's mountains, there's valleys, there's many barriers, and we continuously have to fight against adversity, and that's important. So to me, a river is what we do in daily life. It's a life path that constantly changes. You know that mountains, rocks, they all get changed naturally. It's a beautiful way of working with nature. And I think that all of us are part of nature and we need to work with that system. It's important. Let's see. All right. So I want to make sure that despite all the different topics that we discussed early on, in the end of the day, we do things and we're motivated to do something for us. We have to start with knowing ourselves. What's in it for us, or what's in it for me? This is the kind of question that we need to make sure that we deliver in our message. We need to know branding. That's not a topic that's commonly discussed early on in the educational system. We know that academic is important. We know that proficiency is important, and understanding society expectations is important. But branding is quite important. This is how we get the representation. This is how we get visibility, especially in governments. Same thing for leadership in corporations, even in schools, right? Our teachers represent and model what we think is the future. That requires branding. And it doesn't mean technology necessarily, but how you message the important ideas that we want to teach and model. Negotiation. I don't think that's practiced enough. We don't call it out as importantly as we should. I've spoken to my boys that are 20 and below, and I've told them that you can have the proficiency, you can have the knowledge, but if you don't know how to negotiate for what you need, how to negotiate to be in the position of leadership, to have influence, this is a technique that we have to start soon. We know as children that they are natural negotiators when they want something, whether it's a toy, food, or a place to go. So this is a skill that we need to continue to master. Resiliency, I know we've heard it repeatedly, is important. There's a lot of challenges in the world and we can't give up. And that's part of growing. We need to be able to aversely put ourselves in a position where we can adjust and continue to move forward through resiliency. So here's another thing that we want to talk about. I'm going to spend some time in it. How do we do this? We talked about the what, but how do we do that? Storytelling is the way to do it. Many of us are fans of movies, entertainment, comedians, jokes even. When you go to your personal events with friends or you relate to people, storytelling is important. You always remember the best storytellers. Influencers that are very good at storytelling make an impact in society. And that goes from governments to schools to professions, from families, you name it. This is a skill that we need to master, and that's communication. Another thing a topic that is not commonly discussed, we talk about coaches, we talk about mentors. Not everybody knows to ask for a mentor, even know to look for one. But most importantly, sponsorship is not discussed in society. You can have all the credentials that you have, you can be great at the job that you do, but if you don't have sponsors that are able to put your name out there, recognize you as a great asset or a representative to make decisions, whether it's in office or in a profession, it's going to be a very challenging environment for you to work for. And that's part of the gender inequity that we need to work with. Experimentation. You've heard it before that many are ashamed or at least uncomfortable with failing fast. The beauty of Zoom, working with this company and organization, is iteration. It's an agile company. Not only do they practice it as a product and a software, they also do that with processes. They're not afraid to have a multi-diverse feedback or perspective from everyone. Making mistakes is part of growing. I'll also call out leadership, as Mr. Rajesh mentioned. It's not only that 80% affects inequality for all of us, but many of the people that leave the workforce have experienced having bad managers. 90% of them quit an organization because leaderships are not there. Leaders or managers are either not trained or don't have the compassion or empathy to teach and elevate others. It's not about just a paycheck. It's not just about a title or even just a status. If we start with treating each other more respectfully, more empathetically, just like you care for somebody else, like your family member, treating people with respect and treating them like a human being is important. That is valuable. I've been around in a corporate, or at least in the organization, for many years now, and it's the same theme. You can get paid the most you want. If you can't handle stress level, you can't deal with burnout, These are things that affect you. You don't have life balance. And it takes understanding branding, negotiation, resilience, most importantly, storytelling. You have to tell your story. You need somebody to pay attention. And why do we even care, right? The reason why I'm telling you about storytelling, sponsorship, experimentation, this is what allows you to be able to articulate your need. If you don't know how to tell somebody or communicate your needs, how can you tell them to give you the promotion? You want to be a leader? Do you want to own a business? You want to be funded by venture capital? You have to have a way to communicate and articulate it and share your story. You have to be able to connect. Next is you need to also articulate the compelling value. Why should anyone invest the time, whether it's monetary, sponsorship, just being there to support you personally and professionally? It's going to be a circle. It's the same thing, communication. One of the most important skills, and I'm sure many of you can relate, mastering communication. That is key. And maybe you've heard this report also, attention. We have so much information out there that we're bombarded with too much data. We resort to having data points, to collect, but the insight is lacking. It's overwhelming. And because you're overburdened, you have too much information, you're not listening anymore. You may be presented with data, it comes in from one ear, goes to the other. And even sadder, statistically, by the time I finish presenting today and all of us speak in this presentation, you will only retain 10%. Keeping things simple does matter. You want efficiency in anything, you want to have impact, you want to have effectiveness. Simplicity is the key. We can't be over engineering. We have terabytes of data. We have many technologies. We have many things that we integrate, and the common problem of inefficiency and costs, not to mention resources being affected, to complicated or complex systems. We need to simplify. And that's the story, right? And then let's say you do, again, and I'll repeat it again, because I think that this is a topic that's not practiced enough from the young age and all the way through your life. Branding is important. You need to know how to negotiate, have that resilience to continue to develop, self-teach, work with others, learn from mistakes. Your coaches don't have to be a physical person. They could be books, they could be audiobooks, they could be philosophers that you've read about. They can even be cartoons or actors. Your heroes, your mentors, your sponsors, teachers are all over the place. They are all connected to our life. And let's say you do master each thing in time throughout your life. Confidence. You need confidence to be able to relay a message. You need to be able to stand up for others that are not able to speak, that are not able to articulate. I have a son that's autistic, doesn't recognize facial reactions. And it is a consistent story. There's more learning disability out there. We take it for granted that not everybody is in the same playing field, not only gender inequality, but also the mental state, the learning disabilities, the disabilities you can't see, right? So we can't limit ourselves to what we see. Sometimes people are unable to describe or not even aware of the disabilities that require their support. But if we do have all this methods, or at least techniques in line, confidence takes you a while. And I'll give you an example. It's not the first or last, and I will make a note of it, especially for our ladies, the women. Please apply, even if you don't think you're qualified. I don't know how many conversations I've had with girls and women that are more than qualified, overqualified, but they have not applied. Even if you don't know anything about that role, 0%, 10%, you don't need to be at 100%. Apply for the job. At a minimum, when you're practicing to interview, the more you do it, the more confidence you have, you gain more experience. It's not the first time that you'll hear me say, and you've heard it before, boys, men, they're very confident. Even if they have no expertise, they will confidently go to a job and just apply. And that's how they get the opportunities. They try and practice. It's a journey. This is a life journey. It starts from the basics. This is the real things that you need to, as you're progressing in your career as a student, And please, I'm not undermining degrees or certifications. It's only one time in my life as an engineer have I been asked if I had a expertise in Cisco certification, a globally recognized certification. Only one time. I've been a consultant for years. You know what the question that my customers ask and my client asks? They ask, what kind of experience do you have? Are you familiar with this type of environment? Do you know how to deal with this? And the number one thing that they desire, especially working with many engineers, I work with mostly men. They just wanted you to listen to their story. They wanted you to listen to their pain points. They wanted you to give them the attention that they don't typically need. They want to associate with you as a fellow person. If you didn't know this, being in the IT field, especially in technology, it's a lonely job. You work crazy hours, sometimes 36, 72 hours straight to complete a project. We work when people are sleeping. We can't interrupt a business. We have to migrate systems in odd hours. It's a very lonely job. And when they find people that they can connect and share technology and be relatable in a personal level and be professional, and I've met many friends professionally. It's all about camaraderie and rapport. So hopefully you don't forget this. It's the simple basic. Anyone you want to present to, you want to talk to, your customers, whoever you present to, the biggest question is, what's in it for me? So cater your message, cater everything you do. Customer, that person, that audience, it does matter. And that's what they pay for. You don't have to be the 100% perfect or an expert, but you do need to cater to your audience. So I hope you remember that. And we'll show you a little bit more. Hopefully this makes sense to you when I show you this image. How many of you love music and art? Just because I'm an engineer doesn't mean I don't have other hobbies. I know many engineers are guitarists. I play the bass myself, like to play karaoke or sing karaoke, like to dance, like to exercise. I love to race. I'm a speed racer. I go 200 miles an hour if I can. If I had another life, I'd be an astronaut or a pilot. I will do everything to do. I've also been called Wonder Woman for that reason. I try different things. I love to connect with people. Not only do I like to teach, but I like to have fun. I like pranks. Be yourself. You see the piano of colors here. You see music. If you were in a war and you didn't have any resources, for a long time, we all connected with music. The best way to tell a story, music. You want more peace? You want to get a message out? Poems, stories. This is the old way that we used to communicate before technology came. Our history, all the customs, the things that have been passed down from the past used to be through storytelling, singing, dancing. We all can be in the same path of making a better world by being able to share music and art. So don't forget your left brain and right brain. You have those two pieces for a reason. It's not just one. We are not just one piece of a pie. We are a whole person that have a whole lot of interests, that love to give and, want to connect with people. We're humans, we're sentimental people. So don't ever forget that. In the end of the day, how do you tie all the complex ideas and boil it down to a simple way? So hopefully you got a lot of that. I just want to make sure that you remember that. We're human beings and we're all emotional. All the important decisions that you've ever made. If you didn't have enough data, you'll follow your gut feeling, listen to your body, your throat, how you feel, how your heart feels. And in the end, if you're pushed to the button to the brim, guess how you decide? It wasn't through data. It was through your feelings, your heart. That's the real, your soul. That's what means a lot, your spiritual part of it. So don't forget that piece of the story that you have. Let me see. Now, I want to make sure that you got this at the end. Thank you again for having me. This is just my simple quote. I have many. Continue to dream and work towards achieving your goals. I'll share my link, but you can find me on LinkedIn. In the end, I just want to make sure that you don't forget all the lessons that we're sharing here. I believe in KISS method, keep it simple. I really believe in connecting with people because in the end, you want it to be memorable. And I hope you remember the lessons I've shared. It's simple stuff, Baby steps, one step at a time. Thank you.
For stressing on the key tools necessary to achieve work-life balance and how to break the gender stereotypes in the virtual world, which is almost as challenging as the real-time workplace. Thank you so much. I now request Ms. Anusha V. Uduppa, Assistant Professor, Department of Zoology, to introduce session 4 speaker, Professor N. Manimikalai, Madam.
Thank you, Shruti. I consider it my privilege to introduce such an eminent panelist, Professor N. Manimikalai. Professor N. Manimikalai is founder, director, and head, Department of Women's Studies, Bharatidasan University, Trichy, Tamil Nadu, specialized in industrial economics, gender, entrepreneurship and livelihood, and intersectionality. She has served and in serving various capacities as Dean of Arts, Senate member, Chair, World-Class Curriculum Development of Social Sciences, Chair, ICC Research Committee, IQAC, Coordinator, RUSA Social Sciences, Bharatidasan Universities. She has 31 years of teaching and research experience in economics, women and gender studies, management, and so on at Madras Institute of Development Studies and BDU. She has guided 18 PhD students in economics, women's studies, and management disciplines, and also with her supervision, guided more than 50 MPhils in Bharatidasan, Mother Teresa, and Karunya universities. She has completed more than 20 major research projects and 30 minor research projects with international, national, and state level funding, and contributed to policy research on issues of the marginalized. She has organized more than 100 workshops on gender sensitization and has undertaken more than 50 action research projects and introduced numerous women entrepreneurs across various platforms. She has served in various capacities as Member Senate, IQAC, NSS, Women's Studies, Academic Council, Governing Council, Management Committee, Advisory Committee, Member Faculty Recruitment, Promotion, Internal Complaints Committee, BOS, in more than 50 colleges and universities across India. She is a member in UGC, National Commission for Women in Major Research Project Selection Committee. She is a consultative member for National Policy for Women 2016, Tamil Nadu State Policy for Women 2020.
Thank you very much. Let me start. Thank you very much. It's been on and on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Let me start. Thank you very much. That's it. I thank the organizers for inviting me for this program and also organizing such a useful discussion as an international panel discussion. My dear co-speakers, the chair, Professor Rao, and Professor Bhuti.
We are not able to see you. Switch on your video.
You can see. I could see mine. Is it? I could see. I am seeing myself on the screen. I don't know why it is not being.
Yeah, we are not able to see. Now, yes. Now, yeah. Only just adjust your screen. That's
okay.
So that we can have full view of you.
Okay. Okay, so the topic I am going to just discuss for 15 minutes is re-socializing in social institutions. So we have been hearing about the gender stereotype. So what is socialization? That is the major obstacle or hurdle for ensuring or breaking this gender stereotyping. So stereotyping is how an infant develops into a functioning social being and emerges with a personality, and that is often not gender sensitive, rather it is gendered. So here is a picture where the doctor asking the mother, what do you wish to have, what the sex of the child, a girl or a boy. The mother says that it doesn't matter, but there is another agency, I should say, in the form of a grandfather, grandmother, or whoever. How now in this picture it is depicted as grandmother. Oh, hopefully it will be a boy. So there, I think she is sitting and praying that it should be a boy. So this kind of stereotype exists, and there are numerous social institutions which serves as an agents of socialization, as agents of socialization. So it starts right from family and travels across like peers, religion, governments, media, work, ethnic background, clubs, schools, whatnot, or educational institutions for that matter. So family is the first and foremost social institution where everything is being defined, where how you have to behave, the attitude, the perception, and the gender role as such. And there the language, the acquisition, the relationship, the rules, morals, etc. is being defined. And one is expected to continue to follow. And if you do not follow, then there will be a penalty. That is what we describe that in the general socialization theory and social learning theory, that a boy and a girl, of course, we have the whole lot of LGBTQI plus also, they are expected to be behaving as defined by these institutions, and if you are deviating, then you will be penalized. If you are adhering, then you will be appreciated. So every individual child, whether it is a male or a female, they just subscribe to those notions and accordingly follow. And if there is any deviation from that set path, then people will critique you, criticize you, and sometimes you will also be labeled as, if you behave in a way in which a girl is expected or female is expected to be, then the male who is behaving like will be labeled as feminine, and so the opposite. So starting from family, this is a major institution. It travels to further get reinforced through the other institutions. And the next one is the peers. Sometimes it will be a conflict between the family and peers. If it is for positive, it is appreciated. But if it is again reinforcing the same kind of gendered expectation, then we cannot. So peers can play a role in breaking the stereotype. So in whatever way possible, by way of just sharing or demonstrating. Demonstration is one important area where you can, through social institutions, whichever has already gone to the society now, need to be re-socialized through these institutions. There is a small example I used to give. When there is a milk packet and a newspaper come there on the entrance, and you are sending a small child go and pick up, even if a two-year-old child, and that child will come and give the milk packet to the mother and the newspaper to the father. And where we really fail to demonstrate to the child that it can be common, any one of them can go and do any other activity, but it is very well informed to the child that through the socialization and demonstration of your gender role every day, that paper reading is done by the male members of the family, whereas the household goals are being performed by the women in the family. And therefore, through this example, I'm trying to say that you have to re-socialize and deconstruct whatever has already gone to the society and demonstrate where the child should get confused or should be clear that any role can be performed by anybody in the family, irrespective of gender, and therefore she won't be or he won't be giving the paper to only the father and the milk packet to the mother. And so peers, gender sensitive peers, as they grow, they may be, if they are getting, like people who are attending here also, you have your own friends, having got sensitized over gender, you may need to take it forward to peers, discuss, debate, argue, challenge, and what is the advantage of being gendered, what is the advantage of being gender unequal, gender discriminating in the society. Similarly, religion is one institution, a major institution, and currently it really requires a lot of attention and a kind of discussion and debate as to how religion play, and it builds everything. We talk about gender means culture. So how it is being, through socialization, how it is being constructed to the society and expected from every individual to deliver. And religion as an institution is major institution, irrespective of whether it is, we are in the secular economy, secular country, but still it's a majority is one religion. And therefore, it is every religion defines what is to be done by men and women. And accordingly, if you proceed and if you if you deviate, there is a God fear. Recently, I've been to villages for the Rusa major project where we could see some villages, at least around 6, 7 villages. We have witnessed that during menstruation, the girls are being totally excluded away from the village, entire village, not just away from their own residences, but completely they have to stay away. And this is very much a reinforcement. They treat menstruation as untouchable or dirt and whatever. And therefore, you are not supposed to come into the village. And people strongly believe that it is God. It's a offense if you, it is a crime that you just come in. And whatever time you get this period, you have to go and isolate exclude yourself in that particular. And that place, we have got photographs, videos done also. It's not clean, not provided with or equipped with any basic facilities, particularly sanitation, because that is our focus. So this is one example where religion reinforces the gender discrimination and also the other kind of discrimination in the society and reinforces the gender role to be intact. Then government and laws of the state is there to regulate on the one hand, but again, there are a number of state-sponsored discrimination. I used to say family planning, colloquially called, that is permanent sterilization. That is targeting the women more. More means above 90%. Though you have the vasectomy, which is very much capturing to the men's sterilization, and it is very easy and simple, and you can resume to work immediately. But still, this is not happening. And why this is the state has been lacking the will to impose to men, and whether it is the capitalism or the patriarchy or what actually prevents the state to impose that. So there are, on one hand, you are bringing a lot of laws and what I should say, regulatory framework, but at the same time, you fail. And media, institutions, even compared to the education institution, I used to say media is the largest education institution, which is also form part of the social institution, wherein the stereotypes are being reinforced. And there are, thanks to some kind of progressive thinking occurring there in certain advertisements. I could see there is one Harley's advertisement where the mother would be driving the car and it gets stuck in somewhere in the woods, and the girl sitting, the daughter, will be getting down and setting it right, and she will claim that from father I have learned everything. So maybe one part it is stereotyping, but other thing, it is like you are really making a change. The same thing, like 5 girls will be driving a car and it is for Ramadan, and the similar incident occurred that some step needs to be changed, and the girls, all of them get into change, and they were not expecting the others to. So things are slowly changing. There are a number of other ways you can by which you can project, but still at least we need to appreciate. And there are some progressive movies coming in, but it's not in the mainstream, very, very minimum. And even if they are propagating the alternative perspective, but they are not being listened to or mainstream, and that is the issue. And work, there are a lot of things to be discussed in the name of paid and unpaid work, and if we in Tamil Nadu and also in certain other states also, Goa, Delhi, etc., that this compensation, or what you call the unpaid care work, is being recognized by giving 1,000 rupees. So of late it is little sensitive. The states are being little sensitive to at least recognize that. But there are debates also as to how to identify who are the women who are really to be benefited, etc. And ethnic background, where the beliefs, values, customs, regional wise, it will be differing, and it is being reinforced. In certain regions, it will be quite surprising for us. Oh, these are the things. Like we talk about female feticide here, this is accepted, very common. And whereas genital mutilation is happening in other, and we raise our eyebrows as why it is happening. And those people will be asking us why it is bus harassment, girls bus harassment is happening when we go to West. So these are all the things in certain regions they will be. There are other social institutions like social interaction groups, the education institutions, etc. So these are the major social institutions, and we need to really I think I have a very minimum time, but I'll just run through the slides. Having said that, there are a number of social institutions. So here is an example of stereotyping, how the women are also not accepting the change. There was it was presented by Times of India, where it is all using the women's name. Normally in the sums, in the school textbooks, the sums given the names of the boys only or men only will be. Here the woman's name is being mentioned and it is referring she. But unfortunately, the examples given as women only go to spa and women only go to some gym, etc. But anyway, the woman who actually was teaching the child changed the gender into she into he. So I think she has been the product of a patriarchal society, and therefore it is not a surprise. And this is the portrait by Ann Mahindra that the women are multitasking. And he also had one saying that women, when he was asked to babysit, he was saying that there are so many hurdles that the women had to overcome. Then, so this is social. I'm not talking only boys and girls. I do include LGBTQI also. So through, girls and boys, of course, others also through toys, activity, growth, sports, career choices, the social institutions and socialization are being done, and that contribute to the gendered society. And the gendered institution transform to gender identity, and doing gender again contribute to gendered institutions. So what is required is resocialization. So resocialization is the process where learning new and different set of attitudes, values are happening. There are two components: voluntary resocialization, where you will commit yourself with rational and scientific thinking that it is necessary to do away with discrimination, then you do that. But there is also involuntary socialization where you'll be forced to. And another important area with this gender, whenever I talk about social institutions, it is all with intersectionality. So there are a number of institutions like race, ethnic, gender identity, class, language, religion, etc. It was Ransha who was saying that intersectionality is a lens through which you can see when power comes and collides. So it's the same woman who is suffering, the lower income group or the higher income group would be different. And perhaps the men, the lower income would be facing more issue than the woman in the upper income group and the upper caste. So in that perspective, intersectionality should also be taken into account. And so my concern is, being an economic student, like discrimination, gender discrimination through social institutions do contribute should be taken as a developmental issue. So the discrimination, whether in the formal and informal, will contribute to what I should say to socioeconomic discrimination in the society, and further sustain the poverty and growth issues. There is one measure of gender social knowledge taking political, economical, educational, and physical integrity. And also unfortunate to find that 90% of the men and women hold some sort of bias against women. About half of the world's men and feel men do better in business, and similarly more than half of the women and men feel that men make better political leaders, and men have more right to job when jobs are scarce, like during the pandemic we faced, and 28% think it is justified for a woman to beat his wife. So this is the gender stereotype perception which is prevailing in the society, and we cannot help unless these stereotype perceptions are getting away. And this, I already told, it is a developmental issue. There is a caste involved. And what is the caste? It was worked out for the Latin American and Caribbean countries, like 7.5% of the region GDP is incurred, and that is worked out in terms of dollars also. If you are not ensuring gender equality, and that is reflected in different forms, which I have just highlighted. So what is the feminist perspective? Feminists argue that the distinction between work as productive and unproductive must cease to exist. Then feminists reject the idea that biological differences should be the basis for treating men and women, and of course transgender, etc. differently, because this is the base that we have been facing right now. The feminist slogans are all women are workers, irrespective of whether you contribute productive or I should not even call it as unproductive, because without the kind of work that the census define as unproductive, the society may not move. And therefore, there is no question of labeling that as unproductive at all. And the ultimate aim of feminists is to establish a society which is committed to gender equality in thought, word, and deed. So this has to be understood proper. This was the one I was talking about, how Anand Mahindra was making a twitch. And so how to break the stereotype. Men more likely to be predicted to join successes that should be done away with, whether it is women or men. It is the women are more likely to be blamed for joint failures. This is to be given up. Men are promoted for potential and women are proven performance. That should also be given up. That is existing and we need to re-socialize on that. And the dominant women in profession are labeled as dominant. And if you are behaving like men. The paradox is whether defy or conform. So there is always a kind of a chaos and confusion dilemma. So it is always like you have to show some kind of emotional need wherever is required, and also you have to exhibit your own dominance wherever it's required. And therefore, it should not fall prey to be dominant and penalized for backlash effect. That is what the theory says. So you break the stereotype, learn that because knowledge is power, information is power. You can join into movement to break the stereotype and re-socialize, move confidently into male dominated areas and speak up. We often withdraw ourselves or stay docile. We shouldn't do that. Prepare to react. Many a time you've been pointed from several sides, so you have to react. But what is happening is we accept bias and therefore it continues to exist. Re-socialize on the statements. That is what I have given some statements like you don't accept when somebody says women are physically weaker than men, or patriarchy is ruling the society, etc. I have also given some statements. So this is what we have to take through the curriculum. So I have given some pictures which you used to do there in the what you call the stereotype pictures. So if we can show that whenever you depict a sports identity or something, bring both men and women, and of course others also. So women can climb tree, man can clean the floor. Similarly, women can also drive tractor, boys can sweep the floor, girls can fly the kite, which is actually stereotype that girls cannot or should not. Men can make dosa because they are making thousands of dosa there in the hotel and in the marriage functions, but back home they don't do. They can do dishwash, and but they cannot do breastfeeding. So you have to make a distinction that you don't connect the biological role of in define the gender role. And then men can also winnow. And I'll give an example here how the stereotype has been broken by a teacher who is also the president of the Tamil Nadu Writers Progressive Writers Association, Mr. Tamil Selvan. So when he got married, he informed the wife that she doesn't have to wake up in the morning to prepare the entrance, to put rangoli and get coffee done. He said he promised that he will do everything, and he was doing that immediately after the marriage. So and he was cleaning and putting rangoli there in the entrance in the early morning. The neighbors, the women who were all doing the opposite side, they came and approached Tamil Selvan, saying that why you are doing all this? This is disrespect to the women. So it's better you give up. Either ask your wife to do, or we will come and do it. The next day, what Tamil Selvan did was, it was a real story in Kanyakumari. So he went and cleaned the entrances of all the 3 households just opposite who came and informed the earlier day, and then put everything, and he was coming and minding back his home's work. And these women just approached further, saying that no, it's better at least you do for your home. You don't have to come and do for us. So that day, within a day, he changed his neighbor's attitude also, that they accepted that. Okay, men can do also. So you have to demonstrate. So resocialization is a simple example, but he taught his family. Now he is a retired person, both of them, but he started doing this for the 30 years and he continued to do till now. And this is happening. So I used to see women and men sharing this responsibility after retirement, but this has been demonstrated in the beginning. And this is an example where the dress is being dried by a social welfare officer, social welfare director. When he joined, his wife asked him to, when he joined as or assumed office as social welfare director, he was asked to go and dry the clothes upstairs, and he was looking back. He went there and looking back, looking around whether anybody is watching him, and ensuring that nobody watches him, he dried and came down. After 3 months or so, the same work was given to him, and he went up and he was ensuring that everybody there on the upstairs, on the terrace, seeing him drying the clothes, and ensured and came down doing that work. And that too, in this picture, it is a sari a man is drying. This is a complete stereotype breaking, but it is not accepted by the women. And I have been seeing that men, even if they share the work, they will only take care of their own work of drying their own clothes, not the others' clothes. So these are all the ways by which it was being demonstrated. And so we have to have the strategies followed right from national, social, individual level. The national level, it should be gender representation in positions of responsibility like decision making, work-life balance policies, parental leave policies, gender pay gap policies, non-discrimination of job applicant. Similarly, the societal level, social acceptability of changing gender role, employers offer a flexible working time, accommodating the needs of women during childcare, etc. Social infrastructure, childcare, whatever other requirement, earning capability of women, etc. At the individual level, you have to focus on current gender role distribution, which is a stereotype like the private and domestic spaces for women and the public space for men, and that has to be broken. And personal opportunity structure, whatever comes is to be redefined, and gender debate also, that both men and women, of course LGBTQIA, can perform whatever work, provided training and opportunities are being given. Without giving training and opportunity, accepting the same efficiency from everyone should be given up. So this is what I want to actually do it for the educational institutions, very, because we all belong to education institutions. So there are 4 such suggestions, like we have to update the curricula incorporating gender in the strict sense of the term, wherein the new scholarship of contributions of women, men, and LGBTQA should be there. Help teachers who are aware of non-sexist education. Very often teachers themselves are sexist in their attitude, and developing or redesigning curriculum, syllabi changes, etc. With the training orientation incorporating gender, and review and revise statutes, policies, and other. Very often you just label that the statutes don't permit, the policies don't permit. So revise statutes and policies, and so that you'll be able to do it. So racial reconstruction of gender is also required. So get sensitized to sensitize others, resocialize on gender stereotypes, etc. Finally, I end up with the word where Clinton, and Hillary was interviewed by a press person, where the interviewer was asking, like, which designers do you prefer? She was reflecting back, saying that, what? Yes, interview said yes. Then she gave him back, saying, would you ever ask a man that question? So this is what the interviewer said, probably not. So this is what you have to reflect, break the stereotype, re-socialize the institutions, which I have already spelled out thoroughly, so that some amount of change could be realized. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, Madam. First, I'd like to on breaking the gender stereotypes to re-socialize the concept and demonstrate social institutions. Now, I would like to introduce session 5 speaker, Dr. S.P. Srimati, Madam. Srimati Madam has 25 years of rich experience in teaching, research, and extension activities, and has been able to inculcate and develop a strong sense of academics and administrative development. Her experience in the development of women's studies has been sounded backward of skills and understanding relevant to work in a variety of fields, valuable to the community, development of analytics, and critical thinking ability. As a gender expert using innovative methods, has been conducting gender sensitization and legal awareness programs to schools, colleges, NGOs, DOs, teachers, and other agencies, and also institutional in establishing internship programs for the undergraduates. She has the credit of delivering 70 lectures in various women issues. She has also the credit of 22 paper presentations at international, national, state level also. She has been instrumental in organizing and conducting seminars, workshops, innovative practices in academics. Apart from these major contributions, she has actively participated in many training and skill development programs, conferences, and has been a part of many university academics, board of studies, board of examination, and curriculum training. With this introduction, I warmly welcome you, madam, for the session 5, and I request you to take over the session.
Thank you. Am I audible? Yes, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you can continue.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I would like to extend a warm greetings to one and all. I would like to take this opportunity in thanking Mr. Jairaj, Professor Shashikala, Professor Hema, and the Suyog placement team for giving me an opportunity to share a few thoughts on work-life balance and successful career from a feminist perspective. Before I start, we had a very good thought-provoking session from women's studies experts, Professor Indira Madam, Professor Vibhuti Patel Madam, and Professor Mani Mekalai, Mr. Rajesh Krishnamurthy and Ms. Mabelin for their insightful knowledge on gender issues. So let me begin with a quote from Madeleine Albright. It took me quite a long time to develop a voice, and now I have it. I'm not going to be silent. Well, this is very odd for today's talk, as this is the voice which represents the working women. It's this voice which makes the difference. It's this voice which needs to be heard. So as the saying goes, behind every successful woman is the woman herself. So saying this, one needs to understand how this voice needs to identify oneself, because we think or act, behave differently than men. So in identifying oneself, we need to understand how gendered are our surroundings. When I say gendered our surroundings, I would like to bring the example of how language makes a lot of difference, kind like. So I'm going to give 2 examples over here. One is to boldly go where no man has gone before. Instead, if we are able to use to boldly go where no one has gone before, or I don't like being called sir, or if you would be able to say, I prefer captain. Now, these 2 gendered languages we see in our day-to-day lives, and many times it may be subtle or it may be quite obvious, but many times we'll not be able to identify it. So at a workplace, how are we able to try to look into these kinds of gendered issues, which really makes a lot of difference in talking about gender equity approach. In a classroom, when usually I talk about work-life balance, there are a lot of questions which my students put forth to me, but I would like to bring forth 2 questions which are very common, which the students usually ask me. The first one is, when it comes to interpretations to men's work and women's work, why is it always loaded with gender views? So when I mean gender views, it's something like women can't work after childbirth, late night shifts are not meant for women, women can't travel alone, career is not a choice for women. If she's able to balance housework and her profession, I have no issues in my wife or daughter-in-law work. So there are many such kinds of gendered issues, but these are the few common ones which we come across when we are talking about work-life balance. So how are we able to address towards these issues? Now, does these issues really stop women and establish herself to be a career woman is something which is, we need to rethink about it. The next question is, why balancing work life and career is still a women's choice? I find this to be very important and pertinent because, yes, even to these days, with so many years of women coming into the public spaces, but yet we look upon work-life balance and career, it's just to be a women's issue. Now, I would like to share my experience over here. I have come across many matrimonial ads. In fact, even when I talk to many of these younger generation people, I don't find any difference from my time to this time when it comes to seeking a life partner in their lives. And most of the grooms they prefer, or most of the boys, they just want a working woman or a career woman. But they expect the women to be caring, loving, supportive of elders, balancing home and professional work. And in this context, I always feel that, the expectations is more towards women being a super mom or a superhuman being, multitasking. So she is the perfect role model for others to follow. But we fail to understand that this multitasking and this kind of making into a kind of a superhuman mom kind, adding this kind of tax is not going to help her in her career life. It's somewhere in the later stages, it somewhere becomes a kind of a negative impact on her. So I also assume that when we talk about marriage, career, and balancing this, I personally look at it in the present day context, like family needs women's earnings, but not her well-being. So saying this, if we look from the 1980s, where liberalization, globalization, and structural adjustment started, we can see most of the families being benefited economically and they sustain it. But when we look at women, still we are at the helm of feminization of poverty. There's exclusion of women workers in certain specific jobs, segregation and concentration of women in informal sectors. There is economic inequality and wage differentials, or women pushed into more unorganized sectors. That's resulting in a rise of casualization among women workers in the employment and not consider the work to be productive. So in this context, let's try to reassess the whole issue of women's participation in workforce from a feminist perspective. And when I say from a feminist perspective, I would like to concentrate on two aspects of it. One is the family, and the other is where we are talking about the skill development for personality. So when we are talking about occupational distribution of women, we come across women dominating the routine semi-skilled task of office work, whereas men are represented in the supervisory or authority positions. Most of the organizations often resegregate formerly male-dominated jobs into women's jobs, which becomes attached to lower salaries and are perceived as inappropriate for men. This we can see that when we see in the Bangalore cities, where when the BMTC, the bus drivers or the bus conductors, especially the bus conductors, it was a men's job, but now it's been taken over by women because men find it to be very routine and strenuous, and they would like to push in to something that is more challenging. So when those vacancy happens, then women are filled in so that they are in need of the jobs. It's more towards not having a career or successful life. It's more over filling those gaps where they just need an employment to work at a cheap rates kind like. So men quit their jobs to move to different jobs that provide greater promotional opportunities, but whereas women are likely to leave their jobs to entirely fulfill childbearing and child rearing responsibilities. Now, this results in men having greater opportunities to enhance their careers, but whereas women lose their seniority, disrupting promotion lines to return later when the skill may become obsolete. So women have significantly increased their numbers in the professionals. We can identify in law, medicine, science, and technology, but yet women are clustered in this overcrowded. They are less authoritative. To give the best example is when we are talking about the lawyer's profession. Generally, it is restricted in the choice of occupational specialties, where it's more towards the domestic law than the corporate law. So women are more in the domestic laws than being in the corporate law. So in this male-dominated profession, these specialties are considered more appropriate to women, kind like these subspecialties I'm talking about. So when we push into the white-collar jobs, they exhibit some patterns of gender typing which are hierarchically arranged. Female clerical staff will look into that category. Highest female supervisor reports to a male supervisor. Management staff like president, sales, and product managers, it's male hierarchy with some low-level supervisor. If it's a mixed gender technical staff, lower rank jobs are filled by both men and women, but high ranks jobs are almost exclusively for men. So coming to the blue-collar jobs, again, we see here and the female-dominated ones, like it may be dressmakers or electronic assemblers. It requires a very few skills, and this necessity of work makes women to willingly work under poor conditions or in high fluctuations in employment and command low pay. So as I was mentioning about now, why is this? Why is this women, even with this kind of where we see opportunities being given to women, but yet we find that no participation and mostly concentrated into the unorganized sectors and willingness to have a career life and willingness to come up in their kind of professions or dreaming whatever they dream, they're not able to go up to the highest to the ladder. So as I said, it is the family work conflict. This can be understood. I would not go much into depth about it because we have already, most of the speakers have already spoken about the socialization, gendered roles. So at young age, how the boys and girls are socialized when it comes to being feminine and masculine traits or the gendered roles or identities. As Mani Mekalai ma'am has given beautiful examples with so many things where the gendered roles, identities and socialization process, which can be taken into accountability. Now, this directly affects later workforce participation. Now, boys learn to be aggressive, competitive, demanding than girls, and these traits are considered necessary in many occupations. And also when it comes to family procreation, it is a continuous process of the socialization process where the newly married women have new set of family contingencies, kind like, where they have this impact on the decision to work or her choice of occupations or shifting to husband's house, somewhere to stay very close by to the house so that she's able to take care of the family needs and necessities. And many times it so happens that I have seen when it comes to these marriage proposals within my own family, there are these parents where they say that we don't want our daughters to take up job now itself because we don't know when she gets married to which place she may move. So after she gets married, let the in-laws decide whether she needs to go for a job or whether she wants to stay back at home. So the choice is not hers. The choice is with the husband and the in-laws. And even the companies we have seen in Bangalore, because we talk about very multinational companies where most of the companies doesn't want to take unmarried girls because they're scared. If they take unmarried girls, they get married and within a span of just a 1 year within their appointment, they shift to other places. They give reasons and then because they're getting married and they have to shift to their husband places, or they don't want newly married women because they may conceive, they may have family, and again it becomes a burdensome for. So there are many of these kinds of conflicting things which, like, it's very difficult for women to handle it. And I have my neighbor who just wants to have a single child, and whereas the child needs another sibling, kind like, and it keeps asking that it wants a brother or a sister. And she says, who's there to care of the child, take care of the child? Because I have to manage my housework, I have to manage the child's education, I have to take care of everything from top to bottom because my husband doesn't help me in any of my daily chores. And my mother-in-law says that it is the duty of me to take care of these things because either I choose to be a homemaker or I choose to have a career. So this kind of situations makes many women to quit their jobs. And when it comes to kind of like higher educational attainment, kind like more likely to work outside the home, they just would not take it up because they need the support of the family. So here when we talk about in the medical field, how many do we really find across women surgeons? We mainly see women entering into becoming a general practitioners or being a gynecologist or entering into the nursing field. But we don't see women surgeons. And there are also these kind of chances where women end up being surgeons. They're not able to get married because, again, there is threat that they're going to be 24/7 in the hospital, and who takes care of the family? So this is also something, the mindset which the society needs to think about, kindly. And the obligation of maternal roles spill over into these other roles and consume increasing amount of time and energy. So career achievement is also impacted by a host of other family related kind of variables, including age at marriage or childbirth, professional status when married. So the fear of success starts coming into them, kind like, when they have to take up a career. So this is where they enter into this kind of personality kind of issues, kind like. So because women are hypnotized to fear success in jobs and education because it renders them unfeminine and may result in their failure to achieve the very important goals of marriage and family formation, or assertiveness, where women need to be assertive, but they're often penalized for being so. They're considered to be rude, self-centered in comparison to men. Or when we talk about competition, is often contrasted with cooperation. Men use competitiveness, but whereas women use cooperation to achieve goal. Leadership qualities, women has to make use of democratic, that is involving members of the group, leadership qualities rather than autocratic leadership qualities where it is unilateral decision. And the other part is where we talk about self-esteem. And most of these women suffer from low self-esteem, feeling of self-acceptance, goodness, worthiness, and self-respect is something which they need to have this kind of self-esteem to endure themselves to become a career women. And emotions. Now, these emotions are used as a negative way, kind of like pleading, crying, shouting, and acting cool. Now, this can be traced to socialization difference in which men are encouraged to hide or repress their weak emotions and express only strong emotions, but whereas women are encouraged to express the opposite pattern. So in conclusion, I would try to say, if we have to achieve economic equality and development, women's greatest need is economic equity. So we are not talking about equality, we are focusing more on equity approach here. So equal participation in decision-making, the development of policies, or it may be the training programs in government and private corporate sectors must be reconceptualized and implemented with women's perspective. There should be an economic security and welfare that is taking into account the healthcare, family leave, and unemployment, or it may be the retirement patterns of women. So throughout the world, women need to clarify and formulate the policies that separate the deserving from the undeserving in terms of benefit. Childcare and family strategies, where family leave policies that assume both men and women to absorb family responsibilities, childcare programs, long-term care for elderly or dependent needs to be encouraged. Acceptance of women in all professions and all levels of employment and equal participation of men in the work at home. This can only begin to occur when society changes its expectations of women and men's role in the homes and in labor force. Again, this I would like to quote where Manimekala ma'am had brought about the daily course in the morning, the men washing the clothes or drying the clothes or putting the rangoli or washing the utensils. So many the household activities kind of like that makes a lot of changes and acceptance within the society. In fact, when it comes to the Bangalore lifestyle, I have been noticing there are a lot of changes where women are going for live-in relationships or being single. Now, I'm against live-in relationship, but my question over here is when women opt for live-in relationship, there needs to be some kind of a strong legal provisions where it can protect her rights. So at present, we don't have such kinds of strong legal protection of rights. So when more and more women are going in for live-in relationship, and that is because they are after getting married, they have to shift to husband's residence for childbirth, housewife, being a housework, taking care of housework, or rigid mindset on women working, or health issues like depression, stress, mental illness, or early menopause and other ailments. To cope up all these kinds of things, the family doesn't involve themselves, or it is heavily burdened because she's a super lady, she's a super woman, so she needs to manage everything by herself. So most of the girls, they feel that, instead of struggling in the family and not getting this kind of support, it's better to have a live-in partner and just be to our own terms and conditions. So this is also something which we need to address as to what kind of protective laws can we bring about within this live-in relationship. So as per to the new education policy, yes, again, it has been enough spoken, but I would not touch much about it. But I would just say that how education institutions can become the stakeholders in gender sensitization. Curriculum and educational sectors needs to be incorporated, gender equality and gender sensitive issues. Now, when we come to soft skills and personality development, whether we are addressing about low self-esteem, leadership qualities, or gender identities, now these needs to be incorporated. So let me go back to what Ms. Maybelline put it in believing in your stories, communication skills, or empathy, as suggested by Mr. Rajesh Krishnamachari. Now, these matters a lot in the skill training. I think when we are talking about these skill training programs to the students, kind of especially to the college students, whether it's boys or girls, they need to be opened up to these kinds of soft skills and to these kinds of personality development skill training, which is very, very much needed, especially for the girls. So finally, along with society's attitudinal changes and acceptance, also these should come within oneself, as I had said in my initial talk. So I finally end with a quote by David Alessandro Fanhead: "Life is not a competition between men and women, it's a collaboration." So I thank everyone for listening to me. Thank you.
Madam, for sharing your view in successful career work-life balance from women's perspective. We would like to have a manifest a glimpse of and black now.
It's not working.
Unmute, unmute.
Now we are open for Q&A session, and we have a question for Professor Vibhuti Patil, Madam. The question is, do gender stereotypes seem to be more offensive or incorrectly related to females or males? Professor Vibhuti Patil, Madam, I request you for this answer for this question. Do gender stereotypes seems to be more offensive or incorrectly portrayed to females or males?
Please repeat the question.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am. Do gender stereotypes seems to be more offensive or incorrectly portrayed to females or males?
I think both. I think in today's media, if you see gender straight, they are overburdening both men and women, and both of them are having detrimental impact. Because hypermasculinity, I told about hypermasculinity and hyperfemininity. Both of them are equally damaging to the personality, and they put undue pressure on man to perform. Even the whole rape culture, you can see in the advertisement. Last 2 days, the media is rife with the kind of controversy it has created. No, that perfume advertisement. What does it show? The man's role is that of a hunter, and woman is a prey. So I think gender stereotypes are oppressive for both men and women, because these stereotypes, they are restrictive. And I think all 6 presentations that we had today, they've shown that in several ways, they damage your psychology, they create a fractured personality, they brutalize human beings and human relations, and all for the and commercial interest even vitiate it more. The whole beauty industry, the kind of pressure it is creating on both boys, and boys have to have 6-pack and girls have to have those a totally unnatural and totally unattainable standard of beauty. That it's, and plus it homogenizes the population. Who decides the standard? No, it's the media baron who decides the standard. Eternal craving to look young. That itself is also gender stereotype. Gender stereotype about certain communities and certain ethics, that women of this particular Christian women are like this, and Hindu women are like this, and Muslim women are like this. That itself is also extremely detrimental. It creates the strife, it creates the hostility about each other. And currently what we see, a spate of revenge rape or revenge sexual attacks on young girls who are becoming articulate, or who are entering into so many unconventional, totally male-dominated professions. The kind of backlash they are facing. 21st century, we are seeing the major backlash. Yesterday, a man cut palm off his wife just because she got a government job. Can you imagine? Most of this kind of, she had put in 3 years of hard labor to get that degree, and once she got the degree of nursing, she got. So why does it happen? It is mainly because of the pressure created by gender stereotype. Man is a breadwinner and woman is a homemaker. Now in his case, he's unemployed, so he's not a breadwinner. But then he became so angry that he cut palm off his wife.
Thank you, madam. Now we have a question from Ms. Madeline Plachach. The question is, are gender roles really more fluid in other societies or countries?
Yeah, I can definitely answer to that question. I think it's definitely culturally different, right? It's a social economic issue. In the end of the day, it's the way our economy works. A lot of it is pressured through ignorance, limiting the correct information. There's a lot of noise that is covering up or taking it a distraction, just like Dr. Patel mentioned, right? The wrong messages are louder than it should be. The simple things as coexisting, communicating clearly. This is a problem across the world. It's a historically legacy thing that we've inherited for thousands of years, it seems like. The gender inequity has started way back since Homo sapiens started, right? That is something that women need to be more brave to speak up and stand for. I think that some places are more aware of it because of social media. Technology is helping. There's a lot more people more confident that are recording it when atrocities are happening. It's been going on for years. There's a lot more visibility now because of the internet. So that's why it's so important for all countries to be equally, or at least have the equity to have access to internet, for example. Not being able to filter them and stopping them from seeing the news, right? There are different countries that manipulate and control the information. We can talk about China, for example, right? There's various countries that limit the news. They want to purposely take away the data that they need. That's the way to manipulate. So it's key. Certain countries are worse. Myanmar is another, right? There's atrocities, there's militarism, there's autocrat rules in different levels. And even the United States, even though it is a first world country, there's still historical inequities. You know, some of you have mentioned, you know, famous poet Maya Angelou, right? People of color. And even within our own society, the darker your skin is, the worse it is for you. And if you have LGBTQ, you have disabilities, all of those trans, you can say layers of discriminations add up. And this is across the world. So our job today is make it a story you can share. Stop hiding it. It's a family problem. That's where it starts. So, you know, we are all members of societies. We all have a role as professionals, as leaders, but it always starts from the house, right? Our home is the first thing that our children learn. We need to start with our parents. We need to start with the people that you're supposed to trust. And sadly, the people that you're supposed to trust are the worst offenders, right? Rape comes from incest. It comes from the people, your uncles, your grandpa. I work in the DCFS. It's an agency that helps children that have been misplaced, have been raped. They were raped by grandfathers, by uncles. In certain countries in South Africa, it's a tribal thing. They say that part of them going into marriage is they have to be raped the night before. So how do you know whose child it is? So there's definitely tribal cultural issues around the world. Some are more visible. Some are trapped, they're silenced. They're either silenced or they're killed. And there's many ways to kill. It's either physical, mental, through laws, education. They're banning books even in the United States. They don't want to talk about LGBTQ. In Florida alone, they passed laws that says you can't even say the word gay. How does that make sense? So I think everyone around the world has different levels of it. And our job is to stay connected with our communities. Don't underestimate the importance of you voting and speaking up and standing up for each other. Please do not be a standby person. Don't just watch, don't just record. Take the action that you need because you may save a life and many more lives.
Now we have a question from Mr. Rajesh Krishnamachari, and the question is, how do you expect the workplace to change over the next 5 years to encourage more women into work?
Thank you. The most important thing, the labor participation, especially from women, with the COVID coming in, has dropped. With the childcare, the remote learnings, the first victim of this one is the woman workforce is the one that got completely, and we felt it in our industry. The women who were major, participants, we saw them just leaving the jobs. So in the next few years, it's going to be really a big challenge for all the leaders, especially the leaders need to come out with programs wherein they encourage the women to participate in the labor. And the initiatives, some of the initiatives, of course, we are taking in parts in many companies also is to promote the women's and their, accommodating their requirements. There are a lot of, programs that are brought in by the human resource professionals to encourage women participation in the labor force. I think that's where the focus needs to happen in order to bring the women back, at least to the level, pre-COVID levels. On top of it, we need to increase the participations. I think more training, sexual harassment trainings can help the women participation or women staying in the labor force for a longer time. So these are some areas where I think the leaders will have to focus in order to bring the women back to the workplace. Thank you.
I request Professor Indira Madam to deliver the concluding remarks.
Thank you. I really do not want to take much time, but I'll just say a few things. First of all, I want to thank all my speaker colleagues for bringing out the different facets of gender stereotyping. And so I do not want to repeat anything, but all I would say is, you see, after listening to all the presentations, we realized that women are not a homogeneous group. And I think this is one of the basic things that anybody who discusses gender as an issue must bring forth, and it has already been done. So there are multiple layers of inequality, and stereotypes are not just created by gender per se, because they intersect with other hierarchical structures. Gender always needs to be understood in the intersectionality framework. And so it intersects with such hierarchical structures as race, caste, class, location, and religion. And just to mention the key, dividers of human populations. And we have now, I suppose, discussed how gender stereotypes emerge. They are reinforced and also transferred from one generation to the other. And they pervade all social institutions. That is why we have discussed why it is important to cast social institutions. And there is no social institutions, there is social institution which is devoid of gender stereotype. And gender stereotypes affect the lives of all genders, but women in particular, because much as we say that there is equality, women's biology and tasks associated with that biology, though we have said that my biology is not my destiny, have always put women under certain pressures. So these stereotypes are just myths, as I consider them. They are preconceived notions about supposedly male and female roles and responsibilities. And in the case of the LGBTQ plus community, gender is imposing biological stereotypes and accompanied by social stigma. So there is really no gender, as all our friends have put it, which is free from these biases and stereotypes. So whatever a person's gender may be, stereotypes are simply creating an artificial world around people based on their gender, and use these stereotypes either to impose barriers or, burden them with responsibilities which their femininity, masculinity, or their sexual orientation imposes on them. So I'll just conclude by saying that the panel presentations have brought out one key factor, that there is still a gap between the conferment of equality and the equal utilization of these opportunities. What we really need to achieve is equity when equality translates itself into action. And so if this gap between equality, which is provision of equal rights to all people, irrespective of gender, irrespective of caste, irrespective of ethnicity, and all those hierarchical structures that I mentioned, what we need to do is to be very proactive. And all of us have already said and realized that it is very important to accept that there are stereotypes rather than argue that they don't exist. They don't exist in the case of many people or some people, as the case may be, but not everybody is free from this. So if this gap between, as I said, conferment of rights and enjoyment of those rights, because Vibhuti was giving this example of how law, giving equal property rights to women actually resulted in increase in female feticide, and it also resulted in killings of many women and young girls who asked for their rights in ancestral property. So it's not really possible to assume anything that law alone or provision of schemes alone or rights alone will change the scenario. So what we need to do is to realize there are stereotypes. Often people practice these gender stereotypes without realizing that they are themselves being victimized. So in creating a gender equal world, we have to be watchful. Many times people ask, when everybody is keeping quiet, why are you always making an issue out of it? But it's not that. You have to be watchful. We have talked about language, which is very important. How you address women, the kind of loose words that we use, that society uses to refer to males who want to live life on their own terms, females who want to live life on their own terms, and the LGBTQ community which wants to live life on its own terms. So we have to realize, question, challenge, and we should consider ourselves. The last thing I want to say before I call it off is that we all must consider ourselves as human beings first and human beings last, and stop looking at everything and everybody only from a gender lens. So I thank you for this opportunity. I thank Professor Vibhuti Patel, Mr. Rajesh, and then Ms. Maybelline, Professor Manimekalai, Professor Srimati, the principal of the college and the management, Dr. Hema Malini, and all our colleagues, friends, and students who were part of this very interesting session. Thank you very much. And I hope that we all take back, from here, the messages that these lectures have conveyed, and try and see how in our own small ways, in our own small worlds, in our families, in our neighborhood, in workplaces, in classrooms, wherever we are associated with, how we could challenge these gender stereotypes. Thank you very much. And back to you, please. And I also want to thank Dr. Hema Malini for this opportunity and for coordinating this very important event.
Thank you so much, ma'am. To make an event is to make a beginning. The ending is where we start from. Now I request Head Placements and Training, Dr. Hema Malini, MG, to deliver the oath of thanks.
Thank you, Indira ma'am, for being wonderful. With a small effort to have a collaborative framework in creating a gender society, with this, I deem it an honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks on this memorable occasion. On behalf of MLAC Placement Cell, I take this privilege to thank our management trustees, Shri K. Jairaj, for all the support in organizing this event successfully. I'm grateful to our principal, Dr. A. Sashikala, and our administrative officer, Dr. Anna Danish, who have been constant support in organizing this international panel discussion. I take this opportunity to thank Professor R. Indira, who accepted our invitation by taking out the time from her busy schedule to chair the session. Thank you so much, ma'am. And I hereby acknowledge and profusely thank the panel members, Professor Vibhuti Patel, Mr. Rajesh Krishnamachari, Ms. Nabilin Hachpachat, Professor N. Manimekalai, Professor Srimati Ma, for enriching us with the valuable inputs on the topic and accepting our invite in mid of their other engagements. I also extend my heartfelt thanks to our sponsors, Fund Masters and Asita Foundation. I extend my gratitude to our mentors, Professor Sushma Bavle and Sobha Sundaresan. Finally, I would like to take this opportunity to express my gratitude to our PU principal, Srimati Sarita, IQC team, NAC team, Finance Officer, Ms. Shruti from BCA Department, Ms. Lakshmi, Political Science Department, Ms. Anusha Udappa, Mrs. Jayashree, MLAC alumni, MLAC staff, support staff, students, and all those who supported in making this event a success. We've been fortunate enough to have been backed by the team of very motivated and dedicated student placement coordinators. Once again, I thank one and all for making this event a success, and also finally, our technical team for being very supportive in making this event a virtual event a success. Thank you.
Thank you.
I request everyone to just give your feedback. Feedback link has been shared in the chat box. Kindly provide your feedback, and these certificates will be provided to all the students who have given their feedback. Thank you, one and all. Thank you, Mabin and Mr. Rajesh. So you've been so
Thank you very much.
It's already quite
Thank you,
late
Professor
for you
Indra.
all.
Nice meeting you there virtually. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks to all of you. It was nice meeting
for
you.
introducing to this
Bye.
institution.
Thank you, Mani Madam. Thank you, Mani Madam.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye,
Dr.
Mr. Rajesh. It
Rajesh.
was nice meeting
Meeting
you.
Nice meeting
It was
everyone.
very,
Thank
Yeah,
you.
bye.
thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
you.
Bye.
I request all of you to switch on the camera so that we can have a group pic, a virtual group pic. Thank you. Thank you, Madam.